Vision isn't something you can learn. It's an instinct, and I'm just grateful my instinct told me to go it alone on this project. The words hung in the air of the grand ballroom, amplified and sanitized by $1,000 microphone. On stage, Zayn was a silhouette against a blinding white spotlight, the glare reflecting off his ridiculously polished Italian shoes. He held the crystal obelisk, the Innovator of the Year award, like a scepter. Hundreds of people were applauding him. Applauding my work. From my seat at table 17, I took a slow sip of my water, the ice clinking softly against the glass. My lawyer, Wallace, leaned over. "Are you all right, Ren?" I just watched his face on the giant screen, a mask of magnanimous genius. He always did love a spotlight. We met in a startup incubator that smelled of stale coffee and desperation. Zayn had the charisma, I had the code. He could sell water to a drowning man, and I could build the boat to save him. Bonded over late-night debugging sessions, fueled by cheap pizza, and a shared belief that we could build something that mattered. Our first good memory was landing our initial seed funding, a check for $50,000 that felt like $1 billion. We celebrated on his tiny apartment balcony with a bottle of Veuve Clicquot we absolutely couldn't afford, watching the city lights and mapping out our future empire on a napkin. The first red flag came a month later. In a meeting with our first major client, he presented my core architectural concept, but framed it as a spark he'd had, which I had then ably executed. It was a subtle shift in language, but it placed him as the architect and me as the bricklayer. I told myself it didn't matter. He was the front man. That was his job. We were a team. The next 2 years were a blur of success. We secured our Series A funding, leased a gleaming office on King Street with exposed brick and kombucha on tap, and got a 2-page feature in TechCrunch. Our software and AI-driven logistics platform was revolutionizing a deeply unsexy but profitable industry. They were golden years, filled with the thrill of creation. I'd pull all-nighters refining the predictive algorithms, while Zayn would be charming investors in Palo Alto or giving keynote speeches in Berlin. He was the face, I was the engine. He was the taker, I was the giver. I rationalized the growing imbalance. It was the necessary division of labor. Cracks started as hairline fractures, an expense report with a few too many $500 dinners, a casual mention of a strategy retreat I wasn't invited to. He started referring to the company as an extension of his personal brand, his vision. I was becoming a footnote in my own story. The discovery was accidental, mundane. I was in his office late one Tuesday looking for a charging cable. His laptop was open, unlocked. Banking notification popped up on the screen. Wire transfer of $25,000 to Z Ventures LLC confirmed. I had never heard of Z Ventures LLC. My blood went cold. I took a photo of the screen with my phone, my hand shaking so badly the first shot was blurry. That night, I didn't sleep. The next morning, I didn't go to the office. Instead, I went to the downtown library and used a public computer to look up Z Ventures LLC. Was registered to a P.O. box, with Zayn as the sole proprietor. I used my co-founder access to our company's financials and spent the next 3 days tracing the source of that transfer. It was disguised as an invoice to a third-party consulting firm we'd never used. Then I found another one, and another. Over the next 6 weeks, my life split in two. By day, I was Ren, the stoic CTO, sitting in meetings and approving code commits. By night, I was a forensic investigator. I hired a discreet accountant, a sharp, meticulous woman named Ms. Yashida. We worked out of a rented hourly office space across town. Each new discovery felt like a physical blow. It wasn't just $25,000. The total was $147,800, siphoned over 18 months through a web of shell companies and forged invoices. But the financial fraud was almost a sideshow. The real gut punch was in the patent filings. He had been systematically filing patents for my core algorithms, the very soul of our platform, under his name alone. He was stealing my money, my work, and my legacy. Breaking point came at Percy, celebrating the massive Oracle deal we just landed. Our lead investor, Trevor, was there, along with a few key team members. The champagne was flowing and Zayn was holding court. He raised his glass, his eyes gleaming with a mix of wine and arrogance. "Ren," he said, his voice loud enough for the whole table to hear. "You're a fantastic worker, bee. Truly. But someone has to be the architect, the one with the vision. It's just a different class of thinking. Built this house, you just helped hang the drywall." The table went quiet. Trevor shifted uncomfortably. I felt my face flush, but my mind went perfectly, terrifyingly still. The noise of the restaurant faded to a hum. In that moment of public humiliation, the plan began to form, sharp and clear as crystal, and in his drunken monologue, he gave me the final piece I needed. He boasted about how he had single-handedly closed the Oracle deal on his solo trip to Austin last month. Tiny, overlooked detail. A lie. I knew for a fact he was in Cabo that week. I knew because while he was gone, I had been the one on a 72-hour coding marathon, patching the final critical vulnerability that made the deal possible. His lie was about to become his undoing. The next day, I retained Wallace, a corporate lawyer whose reputation for quiet brutality was legendary. The retainer was $15,000, almost all of my personal savings. Ms. Yashida compiled her final report, a damning 100-page document. For 2 months, we prepared. It was a painstaking process of cross-referencing server logs, flight records, credit card statements, and bank transfers. We nearly got caught once. Zane spotted me and Wallace at a coffee shop, and I had to invent a story about Wallace being an old law professor of mine, a flimsy excuse that made my heart hammer in my chest for an hour. Our arsenal of evidence was irrefutable. We had 1 bank statement showing the wire transfers to Z Ventures LLC. 2 the forged invoices from his shell company. 3 server logs timestamped to my IP address in San Francisco, showing I was the one who pushed the final Oracle code. 4 Zane's credit card receipts from the Esperanza Resort in Cabo for the exact dates he claimed to be in Austin. 5 drafts of emails, recovered from the server, showing him deleting my name from patent co-inventor forms. 6. The ironic coincidence that sealed it. A public record search revealed Z Ventures LLC was registered to the same home address as his secret girlfriend. Wallace's strategy was brilliant. No messy public lawsuit. We would stage a corporate execution. We created a decoy, a proposal for a company restructuring. Zane, believing he was about to cement his control and oust me, walked right into the trap. He called a special board meeting himself. Boardroom was all mahogany and muted gray carpet. Zane stood at the head of the table, radiating smug confidence. The investors were on the large screen via Zoom. He launched into his pitch about streamlining the company under a single, unified vision. His vision. He finished, looking at me expectantly. I let the silence hang for a beat. Before we discuss the future, I have a brief financial addendum. Zane's smile faltered. My lawyer, Wallace, entered the room and took a seat beside me. Zane's confusion curdled into panic as Ms. Yashida's face appeared on the video call, and she shared her screen. The first wave was the financials. Ms. Yashida, in her calm, even voice, walked the board through every fraudulent invoice, every rerouted dollar. Zane sputtered, calling it a gross misunderstanding, a bookkeeping error. Then the killer proof. Wallace took over, presenting the side-by-side evidence, the server logs from San Francisco next to the resort receipts from Cabo. The patent drafts with my name crossed out. The Oracle deal he claimed to have closed while he was getting a poolside massage. This is insane. Zane finally exploded, his face a blotchy red. It's a smear campaign by a jealous partner who couldn't keep up. I met his gaze across the long, polished table. Jealousy is for equals, Zane. This is just an audit. The aftermath was swift and silent. Faced with indisputable evidence of wire fraud and breach of fiduciary duty, the board gave him a choice. Sign a separation agreement ceding all of his equity to me for the sum of $1, or we would file a criminal complaint. He signed. Within 24 hours, his photo was scrubbed from the company website. The calls and texts from mutual acquaintances flooded my phone, but I ignored them. The chaos was his, not mine. 6 months later, I saw his new life. A post on LinkedIn. He was now a strategic growth consultant, a title as hollow as the look in his eyes. The photo was a low-quality selfie taken in what looked like a rented office cubicle, a world away from the corner office with the city view he'd stolen. Rebranded the company, moved us to a new building overlooking the bay, and promoted our lead engineer to be my partner. The air in our office is different now, collaborative, respectful, and free of ego. There's a peace in the quiet hum of the servers, a deep satisfaction in building something real and clean. Last week at a tech conference, a reporter asked me about the company's guiding vision. I smiled. Vision isn't something you can learn. It's something you build, line by line, with the right people. He never did love a spotlight he had to share.